In the NFL, in preseason game number 2, the Bears get blown out by the Cincinnati Bengals by the score of 27-9. What went wrong? What went right? Which was very, very little. We'll break it down for you as head coach Ben Johnson suffers his first preseason loss as head coach. In baseball, the LaKeena series took place in the Pacific Northwest with her Mariners taking 2 of 3 from her Cubs. We'll get into all the nuts and bolts of that one, while the White Sox take 2 out of 3 from the New York Mets. In other football news, Deshaun Watson is named the starter for the Cleveland Browns. What a shock. How long will it last? And we'll have a special edition of Old School TV Monday and a whole lot more in the sports media news department and all the other nuggets. I'm Sid, that's LaKeena. The Monday edition of Second City Sports starts now.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Keep him on the field. And this one, dragged into left center field. Going back is Churio at the wall. Get out! Robert Jr., his 4th of the season. And the Sox take the lead 2-1.
Armstrong gets into another one. Sends Edman back. He's watching it land in the stands. What a night from Pete Crow Armstrong. Goes wide. Up the guard again. And he scores. What a play!
On Jordan Bennington, no chance at all for the Blues netminders. Connor Bedard. Wow.
Giddy, what a pass. Buzelis with the fade on the drive.
J motions left. They're blitzing. It's picked up. Caleb throws. Middle of the field. Loveland catch. Breaks away at the 30. Loveland 20. Loveland 10. Loveland end zone. Touchdown Bears.
Welcome to another fun-filled Monday extravaganza edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid the Kid is me. LaKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, execute again, IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. If you're watching us now live in the living color on YouTube's on Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube, after you like the video, if it allows you to do so, please hype the video so we can get this content out to as many people as possible so we make this show your number one destination for the best in Chicago and national sports talk. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We're not unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion, do not 2 hour extravaganza we call a sports talk radio show. You got to hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I've given LaKeena full powers to give you dumbos to build and build boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, shout out to our live game. This LIVE Live Entertainment Game that's checking us out live in the living color right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels at 12:24 p.m. Central Standard Time. But as always, much love to the replay game that's checking us out on the replay, also at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels. Don't you ever forget our motto where we talk sports, music, or entertainment. We will always provide.
We're about you with some of the best on Second City Sports as the Bears. Well, the good thing is preseason. They get trounced by the Bengals and other preseason action. Deshaun Watson is named a Week 1 starter for the Browns. Also, we got some sports media news, a lot of it involving some friends of the show, a lot of friends of the show, both good and not so good, but we'll talk about that. We go back to South Beach for Old School TV Monday, a special edition of that. This should be a fun one. We'll see if you guys remember this series.
Good tease.
Yes. And also we got some other stuff as well coming up. Wyndam Clark wins the BMW Championship. The U.S. Open starts to begin over at Flushing in upstate New York. And so much more. But as we usually do here this time of year especially, we go to the Diamondbacks. The Cubs lose a tough series to the Mariners. You probably say that they should have won, if not sweep, at least won 2 of these series. But they did have an emphatic message for the rubber match to avoid this sweep, scoring 19. Yes, their highest total of the season, 19 runs in a 19-2 blowout over the Mariners, and it was the Ian Happ it was Ian Happ and Ramirez show as PCA. I think PCA was on the action too. We can't forget about it. He had 3 RBIs. Bregman had a couple. Pedro Ramirez had 5. So it was basically all Cubs in this one. But yeah, if you're a Cubs fan, you're kind of smarting after this series against Seattle because you should have won at least 2, if not swept them. So you hope that, especially since you're going to be facing Milwaukee coming up soon. This is kind of series that come up to bite you in the butt. But I mean, look, I guess you could take it, I guess, if you're the Cubs. But, what do you think about that series?
It was all about the starting pitching for Chicago, or lack thereof. Of course, Matthew Boyd didn't help his cause last Friday, even though the Cubs were up early. They gave the game away late thanks to Randy Rosarena's one of 2 walk-off hit, first of 2 walk-off back-to-back walk-off hits in that series. Of course, last Saturday, Mr. Anderson for Cade Anderson for Seattle, I thought pitched well. 5 strikeouts to 2 walks in 5 2/3 innings in his rookie debut in the major leagues, keeping the Cubs offense in check. Of course, yesterday, Shota Imanaga really didn't help his cause early. Craig Counsell laid out the marching orders so that, okay, you had enough time to string yourself out. We talked about Shota turning it around over the last month and a half or so, but he's been struggling lately. And Craig Counsell pulled the plug early. He said, I've seen enough. Go hit the showers. We'll see you in the next start. But without Dansby Swanson anchoring that defense, without a couple other guys, the offense for the Cubs woke up yesterday, as you mentioned. Ian Happ, Pedro Ramirez is playing very well. And of course, Pico Armstrong had a couple of home runs, including one yesterday in the series finale. As we say all the time, LaKeena, when one area of your team is struggling, the other area has to pick up. And that's what we saw in this series for the Chicago Cubs. We talked about their bullpen being maligned all year due to inability to perform, mostly injuries and whatnot. But the bullpen kind of had to coach yesterday because of all those runs that were scored in the later stages of the game. So you saw the worst in the Cubs in terms of their starting pitcher. You saw the best of them in terms of the offense, which exploded yesterday.
Yeah, Savali got the win. He kind of started that kind of slam of the door on the Mariners. They only gave after Shota left. They only gave up 2 hits, so you'll take that as. And look, I mean, Conforto started it all with the home run to cut the lead to 2-1, and then after that, all heck broke loose. Happ had a grand slam. Bregman had an RBI. Arias had an RBI as well. A couple RBIs, I should say. So yeah, it was basically the pitching really didn't have, after Shota left, the pitching didn't have to do too much. So they were able to kind of just chill and just let go across the board and such. Easily their highest run total this year. I'm talking about the Cubs. So you'll take these kind of wins. So you can just the offense doesn't work and the pitching just you just have to chill. Yeah, there are a couple of those games. That Friday game, they should have won that one. No, not just to finish this point. The Mariners should. I mean, that first game, they should have won. The Cubs should have won that one. And look, I mean, it's one of those things where you're just going to be smart. And they stay out west and face Arizona, so we'll see how they do outside of Phoenix.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago City. LaKeena here with you. We're often talking about the Chicago Cubs to start off the show. They lose 2 out of 3 to the Seattle Mariners on their 6-game road trip. They're now 75-56 on the year. As you mentioned, LaKeena, they'll head to Arizona for a nice 3-game set against the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks currently trail trail by 2 games for the last wild card spot in the National League behind the San Diego Padres. I want to go back to the lineup, LaKeena. Pedro Ramirez did very well yesterday, 386, scoring 3 runs and 5 RBI. Quietly, he's been struggling all year compared to a year ago. Everybody thought he should have been an all-star, but Michael Busch, the left-handed first baseman, he quietly had a good series this weekend. He was 1 for 3, scoring 3 runs yesterday. How confident in those 2 players are you that they can continue this hot streak with their bats? Pedro Ramirez looks like he's going to be that utility guy. Mm-hmm. Michael Busch is quietly trying to figure things out. They're definitely going to need these 2, especially with Dansby Swanson being out of the lineup.
Yeah, those two are gonna have to pick up the slack. Of course, Swanson's gonna be out for at least 6 weeks, so those two definitely are gonna need to kind of like step up, and they did. Look, both of them did yesterday. Hopefully, they can keep it up with that. So yeah, you gotta. They had a good start. They actually, Mariners actually had a solid series, overall in Seattle. So hopefully, you can kind of build on that as they face an Arizona squad that look, they're kind of right there in the thick of it for that last wild card spot. Kevin Gossman against Merrill Kelly. That's tonight. That should be an interesting matchup. You got Clay Holmes against Brandon Pfaadt. That's Tuesday. And then the rubber match, which is going to be the early afternoon game, you got Matthew Boyd against Eduardo Ramirez. So, usually Arizona, they actually have played well in Arizona the last couple of years. Usually it's been like the house of horrors for the Cubs. So if you can win 2 out of 3 in Arizona, and have a good 6-4 road trip coming back as you face Cincinnati and Milwaukee next week to finish off the month of August. I think you have to kind of like be right there in the thick of it and stay on your toes. So don't look ahead in these series. Try to win. Just try to win the series and don't let those silly games like the one on Friday slip away. You can't afford that this time of year.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Philadelphia Phillies after the break, but the Phillies are charging in just like last year. LaKeena, that number one spot for the wild card was almost lost. But if you're the Cubs, you're looking back at this series against the Seattle Mariners, if it comes down in terms of seeding at the end of the year, you're going to look at games like this. Like, well, we let a couple get away. It could determine whether you get a home field advantage for the wild card round / division round, or you have to start on the road. So these types of games, especially late in the year, especially against sub 500 teams, you can't just give them away. We talk about it every year, especially in baseball, as we wind down the month of August going into September. Well, this team has the easiest schedule. This team has the hardest schedule. This sub 500 team, they're just going to pack it in. No, this is their playoff time because they know that the team that they're playing against, I'm talking about the sub 500 teams like Seattle, well, we can affect the Cubs' playoffs positioning. That's our World Series, so we have nothing to lose. So we just go out and play free because everybody's counting us out. But for the Cubs in this series, focusing back to this series against Arizona coming up, I'm looking at Kevin Gossman, who's going to open up the series tonight, and Matthew Boyd, who's going to close the series for Wednesday. Starting pitches, what I'm looking at for Chicago. Kevin Gossman, 1 week ago tomorrow against the White Sox, he didn't have it, but he was bailed out by that hour rain delay, and plus the Sox not taking advantage of scoring more runs in his last start last week at Wrigley. And of course, Matthew Boyd, he didn't have it last Friday, even though that the Cubs offense jumped out to an early lead and then the Seattle battle back. He didn't have it either. So I'm looking at those two starting pitchers to hopefully get back on track for Chicago.
It could be an offensive explosion. So I guess you can take the under all 3 of these series. So we'll see what happens there. Now, meanwhile, over the South Side, the White Sox had to squeak by. And yes, let's be real, they squeaked by in their series against the Mets. We'll talk about those hot Phillies, those red hot Phillies. Houston, they make an interesting change right before, with only about a little over a month left of the season. That and so much more coming next. LaKeena, McGee, Sidney Brown over there. Second City Sports on Chicago Board. Diamond Talk coming up right after this.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms, on Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel. You can find us at Sports Zone Chicago, and on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports on another fun-filled Monday extravaganza edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid the Kid is me. LaKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow Matt Keena McGee on the Twitter, X, again, IG.
As we continue our baseball discussion with the Cubs, White Sox, and the rest of MLB from this past weekend, if you have any questions or comments regarding that subject, you can definitely hit us up in the comment section right now at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena, we get the up on the screen for you.
The White Sox squeaked by in their series with the Mets. They needed Jake Rogers' two-run walk-off on Friday night to win that game. Look, happy for Jake Rogers. They just picked him up a couple of weeks ago. So, look, you're happy for him. You've got a lot of going on with the catching position, so he could definitely be that guy that can kind of help out there as you go into this go to the stretch. Saturday, well, it was a Luis Robert Jr. game as he had 2 home runs and 4 RBIs against his former team. Yeah, I'm sure that made him happy about that. And once again, on yesterday, the White Sox needed a walk-off by Tristan Peters. It's their 9th one this year to win over the Max. You can call them the cardiac Sox, this and that, but this is the kind of stuff that can come back to bite you in the playoffs should they make it. So look, you can be excited about it, but I'm just warning folks that you needed those against the last place Mets. Just saying. Now you do get to stay home and face a Texas team that's been kind of up and down lately. I know they won 2 out of 3 against the Angels, but the White Sox first. So I know you were there for a couple of those games in that Mets series. What was your reaction to a lot of this?
Starting pitching is the main issue right now for this White Sox team. Schomburg, even though he had 4 strikeouts in 6 innings, he really didn't have it last Friday. He gave up 7 hits and I believe 4 unearned runs as well. The White Sox they came back and won that one. You mentioned last Saturday night. La Pantera show took place, and Luis Castillo definitely did not have it. And of course, yesterday they used an opener. Sean Newcomb had 3 strikeouts in 2 innings pitched. Of course, Eric Freddie, I thought, who relieved him, thought pitched well yesterday. He only gave up 3 hits, but 1 walk to 2 strikeouts, and most importantly, no runs. But the White Sox had to get that starting pitching situation straightened out. But besides that, as we talked about with the Cubs in our last segment, with sub 500 teams, you got to take care of business. And the White Sox did that. It doesn't matter how it looks. This ain't old school college football that you get style points for. As long as you keep winning series, that's the main thing. So the White Sox, as we said all year, when they are down, they they find a way to come back. They keep fighting back, keep fighting back. I think the question is going to be when will this team run out of gas? So far, they haven't run out of gas in terms of keep fighting and keep coming back. But on the flip side, the starting pitching is an issue for me. The bullpen I still like, despite Grant Taylor blowing the safe yesterday. I still like the White Sox bullpen, but they got to get their starting pitching intact. And also, too, I know we can talk about this a little bit deeper in a second, but Munetaka Murakami and especially Colson Montgomery, I think that guy needs a day off or two because he's really been struggling since the All-Star break, especially over the last 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you wonder that when does this team going to run out of gas? Because for a lot of these guys, this is the longest they've played. I know Murakami hasn't played this long, over in Japan, and you gotta wonder though, with it still being just a little over a month, just a little over a month left, give or take, of the season, and it looks like they don't have a day off anytime soon. Maybe like within another couple of weeks or so.
No, Thursday.
On Thursday, yeah. Well, Thursday. I mean, that's going to be. I think that's going to be not their last one, but it's going to be one of the last ones that they're going to have this year. So, something like this could kind of, this stretch. So it's going to be interesting to see. Can these guys kind of keep up with it? I mean, yeah, it's good to see that. They come back and they, just scratch and claw their way. They've done it all year, but you wonder that eventually it's going to come back to bite you, like I said. So this is not me being a hater, but this is just how it is in baseball, especially the long season like this. So look, you take the win if you're the White Sox, take the series win, but still, I mean, it's one of those things where you're just like, okay, yeah, the shoe's going to drop eventually. Now, Texas is going to be an interesting matchup. They had a really good one a couple of months down there in Arlington. So let's see if they can, do even better for this one. Your pitching matchups: Jose Urquidy, who had a great start, against the Cubs in the rematch of that series. He'll face Kumar Rocker. Anthony Kay, this is for today, but Anthony Kay tomorrow, who's has been really solid. He'll face DeGrom, and of course you got Sean Burke in the rubber match against Mackenzie Gore. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this White Sox team does against a pretty Texas. Look, this is not those old Texas teams from not even in the early 2000s, but look, they faced them before. So, it's going to be it's going to be very interesting to see because they got a lot of young guys, Elias Diaz, Ezekiel Duran. I mean, then we talked about their pitching too for a little bit. Texas is still a pretty solid team. They're right there in the thick of it in that it's stinky AL West. So, but even still, I mean, this should be an interesting series coming up.
Yeah, the Rangers offensively have underperformed all year. You still have guys like Corey Seager, Brandon Nimmo, and Evan Carter, who's having a down year. But as I said at the top, the White Sox don't starting out their starting pitching issues. This Texas team can wake up offensively. I know we talked about the White Sox being great at home all season long, and they just won another series against the lowly Mets over the weekend. This is a time you have to take advantage of a team that's been meddling and struggling all year. As you mentioned, the series, the second series coming out of the All-Star break, they only won one game down there in Globe Life Park. And so now you get them at your own home ballpark. The offense has been up and down recently at Sox Park. They should be able to take advantage, but it all starts with the starting pitcher. As you mentioned tonight, Jose Urquidy, he had a great performance against the Cubs last Wednesday afternoon. Do I expect him to get 8 strikeouts tonight? No, but I expect him to give you at least 6 to 7 strong innings to give your bullpen much more rest. I think Anthony Kay, you mentioned, he's turned it around here recently. He'll go tomorrow, and of course, Sean Burke has to have a bounce back performance on Wednesday. So, the starting pitch is what I'm looking at for this series for the Chicago White Sox. And on the flip side, offensively, they're not pitching to Miguel Vargas now. They're not pitching to a couple other guys. There's other guys that had to step up. Shout out Sam Antonacci, who set the record for being the most hit batsman in White Sox history for a single season.
I don't know if that's how you want to that the kind of record you want, but I guess if you're Antonacci, I think he'll take it.
But it's as we talked about all year long, it's other guys that has to step up, like Sam Antonacci, Chase Mytroff especially, and Tristan Peters, who had that game-winning home run yesterday. Yeah, and then he had the home run on Saturday night as well. So there's other guys that have to step up because they're not pitching to Murakami to a lesser extent, even though you can strike him out with an inside sweeper. But they're not pitching to Miguel Vargas. They're not pitching to some of the other big hitters. But some of the other no-namers that had to step up. You mentioned with Jake Rogers with that game winner last Friday night to open up that series against the Mets. There's other guys who got to step up. And Colson Montgomery, he's got to figure out to get back on track quickly. Maybe a DL is going to serve him. I don't know. But your other guys got to step up, but your big guys got to go back to being consistent as well.
Going to be interesting to see with the weather too. It's supposed to be a little bit cooler both today and tomorrow. It's supposed to be a little bit warmer on Wednesday for the rubber match. So we'll see if we could see an offensive explosion out there for both of them. So we'll see what happens there. As you listen to Second City Sports on Sports Chicago, LaKeena McGee, Steve Brown with you. Going to the rest of baseball. You know what? Let's switch it up. Let's say in the Central, as the Guardians, they took care of business sweeping the Rockies in Coors Field. Look, they took care of business like they were supposed to. Joe Adele had a home run. Chase DeLauder had two triples, I should say, as they completed the sweep. And so, look, I told you guys, Cleveland's still right there. So they played very well and did what they're supposed to against the Rockies this weekend.
Yeah, if you're a White Sox fan, you knew that the Rockies weren't going to do you any favors. You had to take care of business. But for Cleveland, the only reason why, and we said this for the last month or so, the reason why the Cleveland Guardians are in this way is because of their starting pitcher, but the offense is starting to wake up. As you mentioned, Joe Adele, the trade acquisition from the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Chase DeLauder, who's been struggling, the rookie right fielder who's been struggling recently, he picked up his game, as you mentioned. So the offense just has to do enough for the Guardians to stay afloat. Their starting pitching and their bullpen is going to be there, but the offense has to stay consistent. And I know Jose Ramirez still dealing with their wrist injury. Their baseman who missed a lot of the season so far. But if Cleveland can find some consistency offensively, they'll be right there with Chicago for the AL Central.
And they've got to face each other again a couple more times. So we'll see how it goes once they meet each other. Minnesota, they get swept in San Diego. Meanwhile, Detroit, they got swept in Kansas City. So you
bye, Keys.
yeah, that might be all she wrote for that one in that division for Detroit. So we can save our time and get rid of that. But going to the AL East, the Orioles beat the Rays 2-3. So, and with that said, the Yankees, look, I know they got some bad news about Giancarlo Stanton. The way he hurt himself, I think, just makes you scratch your head, like how the heck did that happen? But I'm going to leave it alone. But they did win 2-3 against the Blue Jays. They're only 3 back of Tampa in the East. So I think they are supposed to play each other in about a week or so. So that could be for a division, but they really need their guys to step up, and the guys have done that.
Yeah, Trent Grisham especially, Cody Bellinger, and of course Ben Rice had a good game yesterday. And so the Yankees offense has really been up and down the last few weeks, but they've been staying afloat because of their starting pitching, especially with Garrett Cole and AL Cy Young candidate Cam Schlittler as well. He's been doing the job, but I still say this, if Aaron Judge comes back before the end of the regular season, their World Series odds increases that much more, obviously. But if Aaron Judge doesn't return this season, it's going to be a little bit tougher for the Yankees to reach the World Series, unlike when they did it a couple years ago against the Dodgers. So their starting pitching is still good enough. The offense, it can still hang with the best of them for a while, but they still need Aaron Judge at the end of the day. If they don't get him by the time the playoffs start, before the end of the regular season, the road to back to the World Series is going to be that much more tougher for them.
Meanwhile, staying in the division, the Red Sox, they've won 7 of the last 10, including sweeping the Giants, taking care of business with that one. Now, going to the AL West, Houston, well, they lose 2-3 to the A's, and they fired this is I got nothing. They fired their general manager after a 3-9 homestand. I mean, I guess. I mean, it's the whole division is just very weird. We talked about the Mariners, them winning 2-3 against the Cubs. Texas, of course, we said they won 2-3 against the Angels. So Houston and Texas are tied. Seattle's 3 back. And honestly, I guess we're getting to this, to the point where somebody's got to win that division.
Yeah, for Houston, it's definitely something going on, definitely behind the scenes, because you're right in the thick of things. And let's be honest here, not too many people outside of Houston expected the Astros to be in this position. They were supposed to be in a quote unquote retool mode this year. I know they had some under players underperformed this year up to this point, but finding your GM now is definitely something going on behind the scenes. You're right in the thick of it, and I don't get it, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time. But this is good news if you're a White Sox fan. The Astros are losing 2 out of 3 to the Oakland A's, because the White Sox, if they grab that number 2 seed in the American League, they'll bypass the wild card round. They can get ready for the division round. It's a battle between them and the Houston Astros right now. So with the White Sox winning their series and Houston dropping a big series at home to Oakland, as we call them on this show, they gave the White Sox that big advantage for that number 2 seat. So we'll see what happens. I know Houston has gone through some injuries this year, but they had some guys step up. Jose Altuve still playing. I know he's hurt right now, but he was playing a part-time role this year. Christian Walker's badass woken up to a degree. Yordan Alvarez is battling for the Triple Crown right now. He's the lone top contender for AL MVP. Whoever's going behind him second is the second spot is up for grabs. So Houston's battled through a lot, and they're still in this position. I just don't get why they fired the GM. Like I said, it's definitely more beneath the surface that we know right now.
Yeah, I'm sure stuff will come out at some point there. Going into the National League, Atlanta, they got the rubber match against the Brewers in the Little League World Series game out there at Williamsport, winning, lose, I should say, avoid, getting swept by the Brewers. But look, don't look now. Just when we thought that the Phillies were left for dead in that NL East, well, they ended up winning. They've won 9 in a row, sweeping the Cardinals, and they actually have came back in about 5 of those games. And yeah, they of course, this season they had 5 wins after trailing, with 2 outs and 2 strikes in the ninth. Back in April and of course June 23rd and 24th, and of course yesterday. That's the most wins by any MLB team in a single season since pitches were tracked, I should say, back, you got to go back to 1988. But yeah, I mean, they've had Schwarber, he's starting to heat up again. He had a little bit of a slump, but he's coming back. For that, Andrew Painter had a solid outing in his first start. 7 good innings. There, Alec Baum heating up. So you good old Bryce Harper is doing his thing. Arias has been doing well too. So it looks like the Phillies are going to be right there, because look, they're going to be facing each other. I'm talking about them in Atlanta. I think within the next week or so. So that could be for that NL East.
Yeah, Atlanta's struggles has given to Philadelphia's 9-game winning streak is much needed confidence for that squad. And let's not forget the starting pitcher as well, Christopher Sanchez. 7 strikeouts and no walks in yesterday's game in 6 2/3 innings, but he did end up giving up 9 hits and 4 earned runs. So he was kind of human in some elements, but I think he's still going to be up there with Jacob Mizrachi for the NL Cy Young Award. But the rest of that starting rotation is starting to come around with Painter, Zach Wheeler, and Aaron Nola has to pick it up as well. So Philadelphia, as you mentioned, they're on the hot streak right now. I believe they're the longest winning streak in MLB right now. So if the Atlanta doesn't get it together here, the Philadelphia could be on top in that NL East, but I think Atlanta will have enough to hold on just to win that division.
Going to be very interesting once they face each other. Now, sticking, going to Milwaukee. Look, I mean, Jacob Mizrachi outdueled Chris Sale in that Friday game, and William Contreras, I should say, he had the go-ahead RBI to win that series. I mean, but let's be real, Atlanta should have won 2 of those games. If we're going to be honest, against the Brewers, but it is what it is. So yeah, I think the Cubs. Yeah, you wish you could have gained a game there, but again, you face each other later this week, so that could be for the division. We'll see. Going into the West, the Dodgers are back dodgering again. They've won 7 in a row, 6 in a row, I should say, including sweeping the Pirates. Looks like their guys are starting to kind of heat up a little bit. Tariq School struck out 11 on Saturday. He wins his first. He gets his first win as a Dodger. Mookie Betts been playing very well. Ohtani is getting there. So he might pitch again this year. He might not. We'll see. But it looks like the Dodgers are back to dodgering.
And let's give Blake Snell some credit too. I know he's been injured most of the year. He came back yesterday and got the start and got the win for LA. 6 innings pitched with giving up just 2 hits, 3 walks, but 6 strikeouts. The Dodgers are going to need him to stay healthy in their starting rotation, especially come playoff time. We don't know if Ohtani, as you mentioned, is going to pitch in the playoffs. So it's still some little rumor mill about that, but. The Dodgers starting pitching has been up and down all year. Yamamoto had a good start last Friday in that series opener. And Roki Sasaki, he may have to be the quote-unquote savior out of that bullpen again. He's definitely been up and down this year as he's trying to figure it out. So we know what the Dodgers can do. As we said all year long, it's not about them winning the most games in MLB. It's not about them dominating every opponent. It's just about them getting the right guys healthy so they can make a potential long run in October.
Yeah, I hope that wasn't Dave Roberts calling. But look, Kyle Tucker, he had a couple hits in that series against the Pirates. I know he was booed.
He's been struggling all year.
Yeah, he's been trying to grind out of the slump that he's been in, and hopefully he started to kind of get out of it a little bit. We'll see. So yeah, hopefully, I'm sure the Dodgers. Like I said, we're not doing the magic number thing now, unless you're the Dodgers. They can afford to do the magic number thing. So. They're probably closer to clinching their division than anyone right now. Just saying. Now to the Padres, they sweep the Twins, and Tatis he homered twice in the rubber match. He drove in 4 as well to complete that sweep with the Twins. So he's starting to heat up a little bit. Unfortunately, Casey Mize hurts his ankle on the dugout steps in that Saturday game. So he that might come back to bite the Padres. We'll see. So Ty France had a couple of big RBIs in that Saturday game, helped him out there. But the Padres, I don't know what to think about the Padres. I just when you think they had to figure it out, they still do something silly. So I don't know.
Yeah, so hopefully it's not too serious for Casey Mize. Maybe he'll miss a start or two, but if it goes any longer than that, they are definitely in trouble. But as we mentioned all year, they're consistently inconsistent, mostly due to their big performers, as you mentioned, Fernando Tatis Jr., Xander Bogaerts, and Manny Machado. Those guys have been consistently inconsistent all year from an offensive standpoint. Right now, they've been turning it on, and they had a great home series against the Twins over the weekend. So hopefully they can keep it going while they get their starting pitching issues together. So with San Diego, they're still in the driver's seat, but barely over 2 games over Arizona for that last wild card spot in the National League. So if they can keep this up, which has been their best stretch all year, I think they'll lock down that 3rd wild card spot. But we still have a long way to go.
Sorry about that. I don't know who that keeps calling. Speaking of Arizona, they did win 2 out of 3 against Cincy, so that to keep pace with the Padres for that last wild card spot. But also too on the Cincy side, look, shout out to Jacob Blade. He hit for the cycle his first 4 at bats. He's only the second rookie to do that since De La Cruz, who did it a couple years ago. He also had 4 hits in that lone win for the Reds. Against the D-backs. So the D-backs are going to be a fascinating team. I think having those two come in for the wild card spot, I think that's really going to carry out. We'll see. I mean, going to be interesting to see who gets that last wild card spot between those two.
Yeah, let's not forget. I know we're about to close out this segment. Let's not forget about the Miami Marlins. They still have a chance in this thing for that. Excuse me. For that last wild card spot in the National League. They're 67-64. They're coming off of an important sweep at home. Beating sweeping away the Washington Nationals, including winning that series finale yesterday by the score of 6-2. We mentioned a lot of the young guys from the Marlins. They're talking about Xavier Edwards. You have Hernandez, Ramirez, and Lopez, and Greg Conine. Yeah, that's Jeff Conine. That's Griffin Conine, I should say. That's Jeff Conine's son of the former Miami Marlin, who was a 2-time world champion back in '97 and 2003. His son has having a good year, 14 home runs and 31 RBI and with a 264 average. So these young Miami Marlins, they're not going away as well. They're going to have something to say about it as well.
Yeah, I think they're 4 games back of that last wild card spot, and you give them credit for staying, for hanging on as long as they have. But I think they're going to run out of gas. For a lot of these guys, are not used to playing a lot. So again, same with the White Sox. You got to think that's you wonder it's only a matter of time before they end up kind of running out of gas. We'll see. Now, speaking of those Marlins, as we go into the schedule here, they host Boston to start that series. Tampa Bay and Detroit. That should be an interesting series. That the first game of that series will be on FS1, a special Monday edition with them because they got other programming commitments. Colorado and Washington, Texas and the White Sox, of course. Cleveland and the Angels. Cleveland continues their West Coast trip. So do the Cubs as they're back in Arizona to face the D-bats. Minnesota, continue their West Coast trip against the A's. Philadelphia and Seattle, that should be interesting series. We'll see if Philly can keep up. Pittsburgh and San Diego. And the other game, the doubleheader on FS1, features Cincinnati and San Francisco.
All right, other series that will be starting tomorrow. The Houston Astros will travel to New York to face the Yankees. The Kansas City Royals will travel north of the border to Toronto to face the Blue Jays. The Milwaukee Brewers will hit the road. They'll start off in New York. They'll face the New York Mets. The first game of the TBS telecast for tomorrow, Tuesday, is Los Angeles Dodgers will face the Atlanta Braves in Hotlanta. That could be a possible playoff preview of the series that will be starting tomorrow. Baltimore will visit St. Louis, and Pittsburgh and San Diego. And those are your series that will be starting off in MLB this week.
Your national TV games for this week. Houston and New York, that'll be on Prime Video. MLB Network will have the Dodgers and the Braves. That, like you said, that could very well be a possible playoff matchup. We'll see. Now on Thursday, of course, I should say the road match of that series between the Dodgers and Atlanta will be on FS1. Also, others, you got Baltimore and St. Louis starting their series. Milwaukee and the Mets. And let's see. No, I think that's it for the ones for Thursday. So that is your schedule for this week coming up in MLB.
Our number one's doors are officially shut down. Our number two's doors will open up following these messages right here on Second City Sports Zone Chicago. The Bears dropped their first preseason game under the Ben Johnson administration. What went right? What went wrong? Deshaun Watson's named the starter for the Cleveland Browns. We have some sports media news, and we'll have a special edition of Old School TV Monday. Stick and stay. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. You're listening to Second City Sports right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. On Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel, you can find us at Sports Zone Chicago. And on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Shy. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
How do you take care of your mind health?
For my mental health, I meditate in the mornings.
I have my dogs. They're the best.
I just find ways that help me just relax.
Finding things that make me happy, like being close to my family.
I meditate a lot and read books.
I have hobbies outside of the game. I'm able to switch off. I'm able to turn my brain off from the game of basketball.
Your mind health matters.
Your mind health matters.
It's a grown man sport. What? It's a grown man sport like that.
Your Marine Corps' way of life is to defend the American way of life. every day. No matter where we serve, we take a stand for our nation, for each other, for us all. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Everybody in a work zone is someone's somebody.
This is my mom. She works for KDOT.
This is my dad.
This is my mom.
This is my daddy.
This is my sister.
This is my daddy.
This is my son, Scott. He was killed while working in a highway work zone. When you drive through a work zone, drive like a life depends on it. Because it does.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of the Monday extravaganza edition of Second City Sports. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. LaKeena McGee is she. Sidney Brown here, you know it's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow LaKeena McGee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
Be sure to download the Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms of Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And as we kick off hour number 2 of this fabulous program, as we discuss the Chicago Bears preseason loss to the Bengals and the rest of the NFL, to kick off hour number 2, if you have any questions or comments regarding the Bears or the NFL, you can definitely hit us up right now in the comments section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for you.
Let's talk about that game. There really wasn't. Well, there were some standouts, a few standouts for the Bears, but not really much else as they get trounced by Cincy 27-9. You saw Caleb Williams for like one series. He was 2 for 5 for 28 passing yards. Roschon Johnson looked good, 42 rushing yards. Also, Savion Ahmed, he had 36 rushing yards. Maurice Alexander, he had 5 catches for 60 yards. JP Richardson also had 5 catches for 48. Jay Walker had a long 36-yarder from Case Keenum, who had a TD pass. The defensive side, Ruben Hippolyte, 7 tackles and 3 solo tackles. Wayne Matthews III had 6 solo tackles. But unfortunately, some didn't really go right. Okay, Davis had a fumble, and there was some other stuff too. So individually, there were some standouts. The team wise, not so much.
I don't want to save this headline for later on. Let's get this issue out the way right now, LaKeena. It's definitely a big, a big issue for the Chicago Bears team. That's the left tackle position. I know Ozzie Trapilla was activated off the PUP list last week, almost 2 weeks ago now. And you have Jedrick Willis, who had a penalty. Braxton Jones, who's the quote-unquote leader in that department to be a starting left tackle. He started the game. He had a big penalty, which set that first team off his back. They had to sell for 3 points instead of selling for a touchdown. You still have a couple other guys that are trying to battle for that left tackle position right now. And let me say this. If the Bears think that Ozzie Trapilla is going to play in week 1, as of right now, I think that they're crazy. He's still about 2 or 3 weeks away from the start of the season, September 13th at Carolina. But LaKeena, Theo Benedict has been He was good last year, but as of right now, he's been He hasn't been that good either. So, LaKeena, how worried are you about this left tackle on the offensive side? That's the right-handed quarterback's blind side. We all know Caleb has a very good escapability. He's been healthy. He's played every game in his 2-year stint as a starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears. But how worried are you about this left tackle situation? Because he can't keep running out of trouble, especially from that side, avoiding it forever.
Yeah, I mean, Braxton Jones, I know that he's had some of his injury issues, and I don't know how long, because like I said, I know the offensive stuff will probably be the thing here, but the problem is that teams are going to be looking at you now. Teams now have tape on him, so and I think that this is going to be very interesting to see if Trapillo I don't think Truffaut's going to come back week 1. I just don't think so. He might be back in about maybe week 3 or 4, but I don't think he's coming back week 1. I mean, you don't come back from it. I don't care how good you are, how physically you could be. Look, you could be Aaron Donald having that kind of injury. I just don't see him coming back from that injury this quickly. I just don't see it. But this is going to be, look, for the most part, they've been very solid. And like I said, the Bears are going to be. It's going to be very interesting to see if the Bears can perhaps maybe gear up. Do you try to sign somebody off the street? Especially when it comes to the left tackle, you don't want to do that. So yeah, I think Bears fans should be concerned about that left tackle position because look, we know Caleb is a magician; he can escape that, but there are a lot more teams that are got more tape on him now, and you're not going to be able to do that another season. That you just can't.
Yeah, and we'll see how Ben Johnson approaches this as they'll face off against the Tennessee Titans next Saturday night, I believe, down there in Nashville for their preseason finale. I don't know if any of the stars are going to play in that one, but they have to get that situation straightened out between now and the start of the season coming up in a few weeks. I want to stay with the Bears for a few more minutes as you listen to Sports Zone Chicago, Second City Sports. Sid LaKeena here with us. We talk a review of the Bears preseason loss to the Bengals by the score of 27-9. Just a couple other positive standouts, LaKeena. I know that the third or the fourth wide receiver spot is up for grabs right now. As you mentioned, Maurice Alexander had the best numbers out of all of the receivers that played. 5 catches for 60 yards. J.P. Richardson, 5 catches for 48 yards. Ja'Day Walker, I thought he played well, even though he only had 1 catch for 36 yards. The big things I expected from that second year receiver from Texas A&M. Roman Duce did have 1 catch for 80 yards, your number 1 wide receiver. Scotty Miller, who's trying to make the team. Remember, he won the Super Bowl a few years ago with Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. He had 2 catches for 18 yards. And I thought that Chicago's backup tight end, not Stephen Carlson, what I had him written down on the list here. Roush, he looked good for Stanford. Their the Bears' third tight end on the roster. I thought he looked good as well. But looking at some of these young wide receivers, looking at any of them that will stand out to you that says, maybe he has the chance to make this team.
Yeah, I think Alexander I think he looked really good in that game Saturday. It's going to be interesting though once everything once Luther Burden III does get healthy. It's going to be interesting to see how he fits in there. They're not going to need another wide receiver now. Ja'Day Walker has been solid. We know Ray McLeod. I mean, he's been around for a bit. We know he can do it. So it's going to be kind of definitely. I think that last preseason game coming up, I think that's really going to be, to me, I think that's really going to see like who's going to be in the back end of that core, because you want to get there's nothing wrong with having too many receivers. So I think that's really going to be the key here once they play that game, and as they stay in Ohio playing. I don't know if that's gonna get kind of like the thing here about the Bears and have that depth in the receiver spot. So down, being that like I said, I think when they get to Nashville and play the Titans on Saturday, I think that's really going to be the key to see. Like we'll see a lot of those guys and like who fills out that receiver spot.
And let's finish it up with the defense. As we mentioned, they gave up 27 points. Not much highlights to take out of there from the positive standpoint for the Bears. I thought just a couple of guys stood out to me, LaKeena. On the first team defense, Montez Sweat had a tackle for loss, which was good for him. Dylan Thieneman had 2 tackles overall. Skylar Thomas, he had the lone interception for the Bears. I thought he played well. And also to Jordan Vandenberg, the rookie linebacker that GM Ryan Poles selected in this past year's draft. He had 3 tackles overall, including two solo tackles. This young guy, jersey number 96, he was all over the field when he was in there. I think if he makes the team, which I think he will, he's definitely going to make a big impact for this Bears defense, which they need all the healthy bodies if they could get, especially up front where you're going to try to help Montez Sweat pressure and get some quarterback sacks.
Yeah, they're really going to need somebody there to kind of help out with that pressure. I know Dexter looked okay, for the time he played in Cincy. So, like I said, I'm still kind of worried on that. The fact that you still don't have an edge rusher. Someone else is going to have to be like an edge rusher, come by committee kind of thing, which could work. But sometimes, those things can kind of not worked very well. So hopefully, maybe someone could stand out, maybe in this last preseason game, and perhaps maybe try to be that pseudo edge rusher. But yeah, I mean, that's really the two things that are worried about me right now is the left tackle position, and of course that lack of pass rush. So we saw that. Unfortunately, we saw that on display in Cincy, even though they didn't play a lot of their top guys either. So they had he had Josh Johnson, who's like 40 years old, who's been around forever, and
Yeah.
I mean, he looked like Boomer Esiason in his peak, with some of those throws that he made. But I mean, look, we'll have to wait and see. Like I said, I don't want to make any proclamations for any preseason stuff, but there have been some good signs, but not so good signs. So we'll have to wait and see these, on Saturday in the next few weeks.
And the Bears and the Titans will play each other on Saturday at 5 o'clock Chicago time, and I believe those two teams have a joint practice later on this week. So we'll see how that goes when those two teams before these two teams meet up for the preseason finale on the next Saturday. You listen to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. See LaKeena here with you. We won't do a full Sports Center recap, but we'll try our best. We still have time in this first segment as we still talk the rest of the NFL. Going through some of the scores from over the weekend. Last Friday, the Jets shut out the Pittsburgh Steelers 17-0. The Panthers defeated the Jaguars 34-17. The Packers dominated the Broncos 33-17. Then scores from last Saturday. The Detroit Lions win their preseason home debut over the Commanders 17-13. Baltimore downs Minnesota 13-3. The Bills destroyed the Cleveland Browns 31-7. We'll talk about Cleveland in just a moment. The Falcons dominated the Colts 34-6. The Rams shut out the Saints 34-0. The Giants shut out the Dolphins 26-0. The Patriots defeated the Eagles 24-21. The Buccaneers get by the Chiefs by 1 point, 16-15. The Cowboys dominated the Arizona Cardinals 34-13. And last night on the NFL on Fox, their lone game, preseason game, the Titans in the last seconds get by the Seattle Seahawks, the defending Super Bowl champs, 19-16.
At a big injury note there, Bud Clark, the talented safety for Seattle, got hurt in the second play of the game. He suffered a broken ankle. Mike McDonald said that he's going to be gone for multiple weeks. And unfortunately for Seattle, it's like the third player that they've lost for weeks. They lost one of their top receivers, like your back-end receivers, due to injury last week. He's done for the year. So this is not good if you're Seattle. I know they're being featured on the Hard Knocks preseason part. Unfortunately, this has been one of those things where I'm sure they're going to want to just get to the season, but unfortunately, this is how those things happen. So we'll see if they can bounce back. Now, speaking of the Cleveland Browns, they have announced that Deshaun Watson as their starter for Week 1. Of course, new head coach Tom Monken made that official earlier. I mean, I don't know. I know some people wanted that little clash between Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. Of course, they played together over at Colorado for their Week 1 matchup as the Browns face the Jags. That's not going to happen, but that's going to be interesting there. But I know Deshaun Watson made a statement. Some of the stuff he should have just kept in the drafts, but whatever. But yeah, we'll see how long this lasts.
I think the Cleveland Browns are trying to get the last bang for their buck. I think this is the last year of Deshaun Watson's contract, and definitely the last year of that guarantee money that the management assigned to that contract several years ago. Of course, they're having big remorse about that now. But that's all this is trying to get see what they could get out of him. We know that Shedeur Sanders is the proclaimed future quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. I know there's a lot is expected from this franchise this year. You mentioned with the new head coach, Todd Monken. They have some new pieces over there, including that rookie wide receiver from Ohio State. His name escapes me for the moment. We saw him a little bit last week against the Chicago Bears. Like him, of course, Quinshon Judkins. Now he's going into his second year out of Ohio State. That running back who, I was telling last year, I thought he had a very good season for Cleveland. He was one of the few bright spots for the Browns. So now with ex-teammate Myles Garrett, who's doing his thing with the Rams. But Cleveland, it's been a parachute, just like here in Chicago, it's been a parachute of bad quarterbacks over the last 20, 30, 40 years. And, You will hope that this franchise will get it right at some point, but they're living through the sins of their own, which they created by giving Deshaun Watson that long-term guaranteed contract a few years ago. So, and they're paying the sins for it right now.
Yeah, Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M, and also
Yes.
Denzel Boston from Washington. They have a couple of their draft. Some people, Tom Muggett really wants him. He's an offensive guy. He coached Lamar Jackson for a long time as OC. So I know a lot of people are perhaps maybe banking on those two to kind of help Watson, or maybe at some point Shedeur Sanders. Who knows? But I know that some people would probably say that Cleveland could surprise some folks. Maybe, I don't know. Jared Verse, of course, who they got in that trade for 2 Miles Garrett going to the Rams. Denzel Ward still over there. Quincy Williams is still over there too. So the defense could be okay. Like I said, I don't know. Could they challenge Baltimore? I know they have, they know they got a new coaching staff over there. Maybe Pittsburgh. Mike McCarthy's over there now too. Cincy. Zach Taylor is now the longest tenured coach in the AFC North. I don't think anybody had that, but yeah, I mean, the AFC North is going to be very interesting. But yeah, Cleveland, I don't know what to think of Cleveland. I know some people say Cleveland could shock some folks. I don't know about that, but I guess we'll see in a few weeks.
Speaking of teams that's supposed to contend this year, let's bring it back home to the NFC North. The Minnesota Vikings, as I mentioned, they lose their preseason home game to the Baltimore Ravens 13-3. Max Brosmer got the start for the Vikings, 11-17, 98 yards and an interception. Carson Wentz, who was their backup last year, 9 of 11, 92 yards passing. J.J. McCarthy, paying attention to these statistics, 5 for 10, 81 yards. LaKeena, we know that Kyler Murray is the starting quarterback. What a shock for Kevin McConnell and crew. I think J.J. McCarthy is your number 2 quarterback for right now. I'm using air quotes here, but Max Brosman didn't. The numbers look nice, but he had the long turnover, and Carson Wentz read off his numbers. Do you think that Minnesota is very possible for them to carry 3 quarterbacks? Because most teams do not carry 3 quarterbacks anymore.
No, they don't. But I think if you're in Kendall Collins, I think he might do that. He might buck that trend because of the fact that you don't know what you're getting from J.J. McCarthy. Sometimes he looks good, sometimes he doesn't. And I know there's some people in circles, because remember, Minnesota's got a new GM over there now. And I'm sure he's going to be looking at this and they're like, oh, okay, this, I don't know if this might be a guy that I might not want to stick with long term. Because remember, Kyler Murray is only on a one-year deal. So I don't know if they may keep 3 just in case. So we'll see. As far as the team itself, I mean, look, you still got Justin Jefferson over there. Jordan Addison's there, of course. Aaron Jones, when he's healthy, is really good. T.J. Hawkinson, same with him. I know that the O line's okay. That's pretty good. You got Darisaw, back healthy, fully healthy. The defense, I know there's a lot. They had a lot of turnover with that defense. Jamal Adams, he got injured a couple of weeks ago in his first play, the first preseason game. So, you're hoping to have him that veteran presence. But you got Dallas Turner over there. You got Eric Wilson. So, Charles Demings. So, this is a brand new defense, essentially, for Minnesota. So, Minnesota could be a team to watch in that division. Maybe. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, if any of those other 3 teams in the division slips up, I think Minnesota could be right there. But like I said, they had, their team does not move forward if they don't have stability at the quarterback position. And speaking of another team that needs to get back on track, they missed the playoffs last year. The Dallas Cowboys, as I mentioned, they defeated the Arizona Cardinals on the road, 34-13. None of the Cowboys starters played in that one. The Cowboys are 2-0. I know some of the young guys did shine, including their, I believe his second year backup, Dak Prescott's backup, Joe Milton III. He was 9-13, 179 yards and 2 touchdown passes. LaKeena, we talk about the Cowboys every year. They're contenders here. They can surprise people. If Dak Prescott stays healthy, they'll be right there. Well, their defense struggled in the first half of last year. Of course, around this time last year, they traded Micah Parsons to the Green Bay Packers for a bunch of draft picks. It took the defense almost half the season to be competent. As soon as they found that chemistry on defense, it was all hell that broke loose on the other side of the ball. I know CD Lamb was injured partially last year as well. Is this finally? We're not doing our predictions yet, but how are you feeling about the Cowboys? Are you pessimistic as most people are? Or do you think maybe Brian Schottenheimer can pull some things out of his hat?
I mean, look, he know his dad had to do that. Of course, the late great Mari Sharmheimer way back in the day. So, we'll see if that kind of spreads to him. But look, I mean, they got Caleb Downs from Ohio State. They drafted him in the nickel position. So I'm sure a lot's going to be expected for him to produce early on. Kenny Clark is over there. Quinn Williams. They've got a nice little mix of Kobe Durant, of course. Malik Hooker. I mean, they got a solid group with the defense. Of course, they also just signed Von Miller, hometown guy, if you will, last week about this time. So we got to think he's going to be kind of like leading the way for that defense. Of course, Kenny Clark, who they got from that trade, trading Parsons, he was actually pretty good last year. Now, on the flip side, though, I mean, they definitely need to get Dak Prescott. I know Javonte Williams is over there now. CD Lamb, he has to stay healthy. George Pickens, Jake Ferguson was really solid last year. They need that. They need to get that O line going because that was really the kind of like the thing that kind of I don't want to say literally, but it kind of got to a point where it got pretty iffy last year on the O line. We know that the defense, like I said, they just started getting it going. Maybe they had gotten going to maybe 2 weeks earlier. Maybe they could have snuck into the playoffs. We'll see. We'll never know. But I think, like I said, we'll see. I think Dallas could be another one of those teams that surprises some folks.
And I know we have a few minutes left before we shut down our NFL talk. As you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago City, LaKeena here with you, talking Bears in the NFL abroad. We'll stay in the NFC East. So let's talk about the New York Football Giants. Jackson Dart did not play, but Jameis Winston, his backup, did against the Miami Dolphins in that 26-3 blowout win in South Beach, 15-21, 150 yards, 150 yards passing. Brandon Allen, 13 of 18, 101 yards passing. Devin Singletary, the starting running back for the Giants, 8 carries for 40 yards. Eric Gray, 10 carries for 33 yards. Darius Slayton, who's is slated, no pun intended, to have a big year, 4 catches for 58 yards. And also to Calvin Austin, the third, 2 catches for 24 yards. So, LaKeena, I know John Harbaugh, Jim Harbaugh's brother, is coaching down there now. He has a whole lot more power in the front office. He's there for 5 years, so $100 million contract. The Giants are expected to do some big things this year. Do they have enough to surprise some people to make it to the playoffs? We'll see how their defense does. I know they shut down the Dolphins, but we know it's preseason, so I'm not going to get too overhyped on that. But John Harbaugh's fingerprints is all over their organization, is all over their roster. Will it be enough to at least be competitive in the NFC East?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at their roster, their depth chart, it's basically kind of like I don't want to say it's Baltimore. I mean, he did get Isaiah Likely to come with him. Of course, he was at Baltimore for years. Now he's with him over at the Giants. You got Darius Slayton. He's still over there. Cam Scatterboo, he has to stay healthy. I know they just signed Najee Harris to a 1-year deal. He's been around for a bit, so that could be a nice compliment to Scatterboo. We'll see if Malik Neighbors will be able to play fully, in week 1. I mean, I know Darnell Mooney is now over there for the defense. I mean, you got of course, your former Bear Tremaine Edmonds over there now. Of course, you got Abdul Carter. He was really solid last year. So, look, like I said, they could surprise some folks, but like I said, I need to see him. You still got Philadelphia over there. They made some moves during the offseason. The Commanders, I mean, look, I'm not going to get into the whole thing with Jaden Daniels. Google is your friend. That's just that whole thing is just a little bit weird. I know they picked up some guys over there during the off season, and I know they got McLaren over there. Of course, they've got Jacoby Merritt up there. So I think that NFC East is going to be a very interesting division to watch out for. Because I think all 4 teams you can make a case for the most part to win that division. But again, we just got to wait and see.
Like I said, Washington could be the wild card here. We mentioned about Dan Quinn, everything that did go wrong, especially after that loss to Chicago on Monday Night Football last year. Everything that did go wrong for them, went wrong for them last year, including Jay Daniels being out for the rest of the year. Dan Quinn's team did play hard, but they came up with the short end of the stick, missing the playoffs and end of the season over the ugly record. His job could be on the line. We'll see if that team can get out to a hot start. Philadelphia, we all know that playbook was scaled back last year to quote unquote protect Jalen Hurts. It didn't work. The defense was solid, but that offense was scaled back. It cost them their playoff loss in the divisional round last year to the 49ers at home. So to the 49ers at home, so it ended ugly. So, and they changed offensive coordinators, and we talked about the Giants there. So this could be a sneaky competitive division, but for the cases like teams like the Cowboys and Washington Commanders, both those teams need to get off to good starts.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's going to be the key here real quick before we get up against it. But yeah, this Philly squad, I mean, look, they got Hollywood Brown. I know they traded AJ Brown. He's over in New England. Mm-hmm. They got Hollywood Brown, of course, a veteran from KC. So that helps out Saquon Barkley a little bit. They got Jordan Davis over there now on the defensive front, the nose tackle. So look, I mean, I'm interested to see what the Philadelphia. I think. Look, I hate to say Nick Sirianni's job's on the line, but it probably is, because we know last year a lot of folks wanted him gone. So after they lost to San Fran, but I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, you cannot live off that Super Bowl from a couple years ago when you beat Patrick Mahomes and crew to end their 3-peat dreams down there in New Orleans just from a couple years ago. So, like you said, we'll see what happens. We have to take our 2-2 timeout right here on the Monday edition of Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. We have sports media news coming up. LaKeena has some tennis and golf news to share with you, and we'll take a trip to South Florida for this week's edition of Old School TV Monday. That and a whole lot more as you stick and stay right here on Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's LaKeena. Our sports potpourri segment is coming up next.
Poof.
Hey, it's your boy, the Superback, Sean Sierra, and be sure to follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. On Facebook, Instagram, and our Roku channel, you can find us at Sports Zone Chicago. And on Twitter, we are at Sports Zone Chi. Also, be sure to download our mobile app so you can take Sports Zone Chicago with you on the go.
Got it done here. Ouch! And we're gonna make sure you lit this time. Ouch! You're not gonna get me this time.
Ow, Manny!
Whoops! Let's try an easy one.
Every day, we take steps to keep the people we love safe, but some health risks are easy to miss. Ticks hiding in the yard can spread germs, like the ones that cause Lyme disease. Mice searching for food can spread bacteria that makes us sick. Mosquitoes lay eggs in standing water and can spread West Nile virus and more. Cockroaches are drawn to water in the home, leaving behind allergens that can trigger asthma attacks. Common pests can threaten our health. Learn how to protect your family at pestworld.org.
Hey, this is Corey McGee, and I listen to Sean and Maya on the morning show.
Welcome back to Second City Sports' Monday Extravaganza edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid the Kid is me. LaKeena McGee is she. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter X and the IG is SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keena McGee on the Twitter X. Here's getting the IG.
This is our sports potpourri segment. Poof! This is our last break of the show for today. So if you have any questions or comments on any of the topics we discussed thus far in today's show, Cubs, Sox, Bears, NFL, any of the topics that we're going to discuss coming up here in our sports media segment, including changes on one Chicago sports radio station, you can definitely hit us up right now in the comments section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments to the comment section. LaKeena will get the up on the screen for. Sorry, wrong segment. LaKeena will get them up on the screen for you.
It's almost the end of the show, folks, of course.
False start, penalty, flag.
Audible here. Now, we'll get the golf and the tennis stuff out the way first because we got a lot of sports media news stuff about that. It involves a lot of friends of the show. We'll talk about that a little bit here. But yeah, shout out to Wyndam Clark, who wins the BMW Championship down in St. Louis. He held off Rory McIlroy and Pat Cantley and also Colin Morikawa as gets his first win after winning the U.S. Open a little over a month ago, especially now with the he clinches a spot, of course, in the Tour Championship, which will be this weekend. So, of course, all the confidence, he, like I said, he strikes the ball very well, and that ball striker was in effect last weekend.
Yeah, sorry I didn't get a chance to watch any of it. I was in these White Sox streets this weekend, so I know that most of the major tournaments for golf are out the way for this year. But I'm sure that hopefully some bigger stars will come out of this tournament, and hopefully there'll be a spotlight for the future big time tournaments. So just congratulations to those participants there.
Yeah, of course he was kind of shoved. I think he finished like in 15th. Of course he did admit though that he was a little bit under the weather. So, but we'll see how he does. He's kind of like he and Rory are in the driver's seat for the Tour, the FedEx Cup Championship, which will be, like I said, will be this weekend in Atlanta. So it could be a battle between those two. I think Colin Morikawa, I believe, has an outside shot as well, but a lot has to happen in front of him. I guess he got to hope that both guys stink. So, but yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens this weekend. Also, a little bit of well, you have it. You got something else you need to you want to add?
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, just real quick on the tennis front. Serena Williams, she'll be playing again in the U.S. Open, but she'll be playing mixed doubles with reigning two-time reigning champion Carlos Alcaraz. The two will be playing mixed doubles together at next week's U.S. Open in Flushing. So, look, I know I've kind of gotten on Serena for playing, but look, doubles are one of you can play doubles until you're like almost 50. Martina Navratilova, she did it until almost she was like 48 years old. So. Doubles is not a lot of big grinding, and even though I know Carlos Alcaraz does have a little bit of experience in playing doubles as well, so this could be an intriguing pairing here.
So I hope both those individuals do well, but it sounds to me I'm just getting maybe this is just me, and it's okay. I'm getting a sense of those PJ Senior Golf Tour vibes, if you know what I mean. I said, well, let's give the people what they want. Yeah, we'll play our asses off, we'll put on a good show, but. I know Serena will probably take this seriously to an extent. Alvarez is going to take this seriously, but do you really think they're going to go all out together? Of course, I'm sure they hope both of them hope they'll win, but I'm getting PJ Senior tour vibes, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah, I think they. Well, no. I think you might be honest. You might be honest. Like I said, I'm no conspiracy theorist, but I won't play one on this podcast. But I think you probably are right about that. Not a lot of people watch the mixed doubles in the U.S. Open, so getting ESPN to show it because, of course, they're the exclusive home for the U.S. Open. Yeah, I can see that. Now, I'm sure Alcaraz didn't want to spend too much energy because he's trying to defend the title here, especially him coming back himself from a long injury layoff with that wrist, testing that wrist out. So it should be interesting, but we'll see.
Yeah, as you mentioned, ESPN, they'll get the ratings because Serena hasn't played in a while. She's a mom now, and Carlos Alcaraz is one of the top male tennis players in the world. So you'll get people to watch eventually. But should their matches go wrong and they get dominated, it's going to blow up on them real quick. And hopefully that doesn't happen for either one of them. But should this go south, ESPN is going to suffer big time in terms of ratings.
You probably are right about that. Now, we got a trade in the NFL, according to now Netflix and Ringers, Tom Pelissero. The Patriots are sending wide receiver Kayshon Boutte to the Texans for safety Jalen Reed and a draft pick. This, according, he says, sources, of course, is telling him and the Ringer. We knew that Boutte was a big part of the Patriots going to the Super Bowl last season. Jalen Reed is a solid safety for the Texans. I guess the Patriots, I think with Texas, I think they lost a couple of guys to injuries, so this could help them, and they need safety help. The Patriots do, so Jalen Reed provides that. So this is a good trade for both teams, it seems.
Yeah, and I'll go with Jalen Reed first. He'll help out the veteran that they signed in the offseason from Chicago, Kevin Byard. Kevin Byard is going to help him out a lot, and so especially looking at those wide receivers, they're going to go up, particularly against Buffalo and DJ Moore. Those guys are going to help out tremendously when they play against the Buffalo Bills. And like you said, the Texas, they're struggling in depth right now. I think that's going to help them too. So I think this trade could work out for both teams. But pay attention to New England's secondary, especially when they play against Buffalo. So presuming both those guys are healthy. I'm talking about Jalen Reed and Kevin Byard. I think that trade is really going to pay off when they face the Bills this year.
Yeah, it really should. So, this might be interesting for both teams. And same with the NFL, of course. This came out last night, but George Kittle, the talented tight end from San Fran. No, I'm not talking about the other news involving Jed York. No, I'm not doing that. That's a little bit too bizarre. So cool's your friend, folks. But some big news here, though, that he is, of course, I'm talking about Kittle, has been cleared for practice. So we could see him soon. I don't know if we'll see him week 1, but you may see him with maybe 2 or 3. We know that he's been struggling with that Achilles injury. So I think, look, some good injury, some positive injury news for the 49ers finally.
Yeah, hopefully George Kittle will be ready to go when they take on the Rams here in about less than 3 weeks, and when they open up the season in Australia. Like you said, Achilles injury, injury to the Achilles or the hamstring or groin, those are very tricky. You feel fine today and then feel terrible tomorrow. So you have to manage this with very cautious eyes, especially with George Kittle being one of the best tight ends in the league. Also, edge is starting to creep up on him too, so that's definitely going to work against him as well. He's no spring chicken, so the 49ers know that. They're going to monitor it very carefully. He's definitely one of the key parts to that offense led by quarterback Brock Purdy. As you mentioned, they have Mike Evans over there now. You have Christian McCaffrey at running back. They brought Deebo Samuel back, so he's definitely going to be he's a very important piece to the offense. And if you can avoid him missing any additional time, you have to be cautious and take care of him right now.
Yeah, let's hope he does. He does. Is back for that game against the Rams in Melbourne. So that should be interesting to see. Hopefully he can't, because they're even better with him there. So hopefully he will be back as well. Now, anything else before we go into the busy sports media news from the weekend?
Let's get into the sports media circuits.
All right. Actually, this is Second City Sports on Sports Social Media. LaKeena, McGee, Steve Brown with you. As we go into the sports and media news, a lot has happened in the last weekend since you guys, we've all been together. So let's start with this. The news came out about 3:30. Shout out to BearMedia.com. Those guys are very plugged in to the media news from all the radio stations all over the country, and they were the first to come out with this news. Of course, John Greenberg, of course, who did a lot of great stuff for ESPN, Chicago.com. He's now with The Athletic. He kind of sort of said that this has been in the works for the last few weeks. Involving a couple of friends of the show, Mike Mulligan, of course, the one half of our good friend of the show, David Hall, Well, he was let go after 20 years. That show, well, we'll tell you about the rest of that, what happened there in a second. And of course, our other buddy, Marshall Harris, he was let go from the other two friends of the show, Leila Rahimi and Mark Grody. That show is going to shake up as well. And they just made the announcement on the score. I was just listening to it on my on YouTube. They made the announcement that our other good friend of the show, Jared Payton, will be the new co-host with Ha. The Ha Payton Show will launch next Monday at 5:30 a.m. Chicago time, and every weekday morning. There's a lot to unpack here, Sid. So you start.
Yeah, I was discussing this with a couple of confidants that we both know at the Sox game last weekend, and this was the biggest news in Chicago sports radio in Chicago period. And this person was telling me about the change to the new morning show, and we talked. Of course, we talked about the firings of the departures of Mike Mulligan and Marshall Harris, at least for the like I said, from this couple of confidants that I talked to, that the Marshall Harris situation was up in the air for a while, but I'll focus in on Mike Mulligan. Of course, when I went to the Illinois Media School many moons ago, I entered at Sporting News Radio. Remember, it was he and Jay Mariotti that had the national morning show, and he was covering the Bears for the Tribune at the time. I met him and Jay. Both of them were cordial to me. Mike Mulligan, of course, did his thing covering the Bulls back in the day. Of course, transitioned over to Bears in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Of course, after Sporting News Radio, their operations moved out to California. He was hired by Mitch Rosen in the Score. He did a great job in the morning show with Brian Hanley first, and then, of course, with David Hall over these last several years. But from what I was told, the ratings had a lot to do with it. I think we talked about on the show about a week or so ago that Cap and Jay Hood defeated them in ratings for the last few months. And we all know that this is when you deal with the terrestrial radio in particular, it's a ratings war, it's a ratings business. So if those numbers are not showing up, going up, projected upwards in your direction, going upwards, your days will be numbered. So, and Mike Mulligan, did he deserve a goodbye show? Yes, he did, and that's the ugly side of this business. Not everybody gets treated fairly, and which is unfortunate. I don't think Brian Hanley got that treatment in terms of a finale of the show when he left many years ago. So, and that's the ugly side, the crooked side of this business. Of course, the now late great Terry Boers got, even though he was sick, why he had to separate in 2017. He got a quote unquote a goodbye show, but many others that were let go from that station over years didn't get that. So I found that situation with Mulligan kind of tricky. You didn't even give him a chance to say goodbye to the listeners. Doing something for over 2+ decades, whether it's print,
almost 20 years,
and print and media, broadcasting and writing, that says something about you. You're consistent, the way you deliver your message, the way you tell your stories, and your personality shines, and many listeners connecting with you throughout the years. It's very hard to do. Not too many people could do that. And so for him to get the treatment like that, not to say goodbye officially on the air, that's just very foul in my opinion.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is how it works in the radio business. We worked in it, Sid, and unfortunately, this is you could be on the station for 25, 30 plus years. Unfortunately, sometimes you do get a send off, but sometimes you don't. This is like the cruel part about the business, and would have been great to have Mully had gotten his own farewell. It would have been great, but it's one of those things where this entertainment business in general, they kind of say, look, we thank you for your service, but they move on to the next chapter, unfortunately, and that's just how the cookie crumbles. Like I said, Sid and I, we both went through it, and it's just one of those things where you just gotta dust it off and try to bear it. Now, I feel bad for Marshall too, because I think he and Layla and Grody were starting to find their footing, and I think maybe the Q ratings, I guess, wasn't very good, focus groups or whatever, however you want to say it. So we wish him nothing but the best. He still has his gig over at ABC 7 Chicago. He kind of does utility stuff, whenever Ryan Cheverini, our girl Dion Miller, and also other good friend Mark Shanowski, whatever, they're doing other stuff. He's kind of like the cleanup guy, if you will. So you may see him in another. I don't know if you'll see him at the Asian 1000 anytime soon, but. Now, as far as Jarrett Payton's concerned, I know some people said, well, he said he's supposed to be spending time with his family. He left WGN TV a few weeks ago, blah, blah, blah. Look, I mean, the hours are a little bit better. And if he needs to work it from home, I'm sure they'll work it out so that he can do it if he wants to. But I don't think he would have done this, even though he knew that the fan was going to be okay with it. His kids are older,
Thank you.
So look, they know what's up. They grew up around this business. They know what's up and whatnot. So people say, "Well, I thought you said he's going to spend time with his family." Guys, relax. I'm sure he talked about it with his wife and his kids, and his kids are very smart. They know, his wife, been with them through all this stuff. They know what's up. So I think this could work between him and Hall. We know he did overnight. Oh, the old 97.7 a game with the late Harry time with Spike Manning. That was okay. Unfortunately, the station had its own kind of problems and such, but we won't get into that because we don't got time. But yeah, I think this could work. I think this could be some other stuff too. That I think is why they went with Jared. I know some people thought they were going to go with either Ruthie Polinsky or even Clay Harbor, but I think they wanted the big name and such. So maybe that's why they went with Jared. We'll see if it works. Now, as far as the midday show with I guess they're gonna right now just gonna stay with Rahimi and Grody, but I'm wondering at some point because Mark's gonna be coming up, with a lot of Bear stuff, so you wonder like they're gonna have to bring in somebody. I hope they bring in Gabe Ramirez because I think he's terrific. He's a Chicago guy. He grew up in Chicago.
Yeah.
He's a Latino, and look, they got a big population of we got a big population of Latinos here in Chicago, and I think having him there, he's really good. I heard him this morning. He's really good and very knowledgeable, both music and sports. So I'm hoping that he gets a shot because I think he could be the kind of guy that kind of gives that midday show a little bit more oomph.
Yeah, and also too, he works over at CHSN with a couple of buddies that we know on air with the Chicago lead, and plus he does work with the Chicago Fire, so he's plugged into what's going on in the city of Chicago, both on the entertainment side and of course on the sports side. But I'll start out with the morning show. I heard some people were telling me that the score was trying to find their version of Tom Waddle. You can say what you will, but Jared Payton, when he was at WGN, I'm not saying it's just because we had him on the show a few years ago, but we know enough of his work. We know him both personally. We know guys that we know, LaKeena, that we worked with. They don't know him a little bit better than we do. But, when he was at WGN, he taught all kinds of sports. He did a nightly show every night, GN Sports Tonight, ladies and gentlemen. So it's not Bears from start to finish. So people do your research. But with that being said, we know that it's football season coming up. So they're going to get some numbers. I'm talking about the score with Jerry Payton because we know at this time it's Bears heavy, whether they're good, whether they're bad. But it's in the other months where the Bears are not as popular. The Bulls are not projected to be any good this year. The Blackhawks, I know they don't get a lot of love during their season because hockey doesn't get a lot of coverage in this town during the year. But once the playoffs start, as we saw during their dynasty, it picks up. But is what you're talking about up until baseball season, assuming that we have a baseball season that starts on time this year. That's when I think that morning show is going to get tested. I think they're going to have some growing pains. I think both Hall and Jarrett know that. But this football season should has wherever King said that it should be worked out. I'm not saying that they're not going to have any problems because that's cap, as the kids would say. But I think they'll be fine initially because with the Bear season starting, regular season starting in a couple of weeks. But we'll see how the show really does between. I say at the end of January, assuming that the Bears are still in the playoffs, between the end of January and the start of baseball season. I think that's going to be a tall tale of what that show is made of. Now, with the midday show with Layla and Mark, I know Mark is driving the show right now. I know Layla drove the show when it was just Layla Harris and Grody, but Grody's driving the show, and we'll see how that goes. But I won't be surprised if they added Clay Harper or Gabe Ramirez down the road. And could it be somebody from the outside, that outside the Chicagoland market? I don't think that'll be a great idea. But if Clay Harper or if Gabe Ramirez is added to that midday show, I will not be surprised. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Yep. So, a lot to unpack. I know we unpacked a lot there in a short time, but we were able to do that. So, thank goodness. Now we have more sports media news connected to Jared's old show, GN Sports. They brought back another one of our good friends of the show, Chris Bowden's back there. He made his return on Friday, and of course, Jared left, and of course, now with this, apparently this has been the work for some time now. Now it's good to see Chris Bowden back. Look, he's been covering Chicago sports for I don't want to age him, but I'm trying to be careful because I don't want to age him or anything, but he's been doing it a long time. I'll say that. And look, he's really good. He was very gracious when he was initially let go by GN. I'm glad they brought him back. I guess I'm thinking they realized that bringing somebody in from the outside, especially when you've got Bears coming up and Bulls and Blackhawks going to be starting, folks going to want to tune in to see like somebody that they know. And look, I saw him. I saw him on throughout the weekend. He didn't lose a step. He still sounds great. You could tell there was a lot of joy in Josh's face when they brought him back. So I'm glad that worked out in the end.
Yeah, I know he's a friend of the show. Hope we will have him back on this program down the road. But I saw a couple of clips. You could tell that the impact that you make on people, not just on camera but off camera as well, and not everybody gets that treatment on the air. It's just like, we see LaKeena, you hear it on radio. Oh, you go through the motions. Oh, they think, well, they seem like they like each other, and you hear other stuff behind the scenes. But like you said, the chemistry between him and Joshua it was very genuine for the couple of clips that I saw, and you could tell that with the uptick in Chicago sports, the potential they were going to experience here in the next few months, perhaps hopefully years as well. It comes out in your broadcast. It comes out in the reporting as well. So on a personal note, like I'm glad to see Chris Bowden back. And so as we said before, when the changes were made, it was just Caitlin Sharkey and another good friend of the show, and of course Josh Fryman bringing up the load. How's the WGN Sports Department going to survive? They just brought back, and no pun intended, an old friend. I know they have others that take up the space on the weekends, and Kevin Powell, who's really making a big name for himself on the TV side. Another friend of the show, and Andy Mazer. But
another friend of the show.
So those three, yeah. See how we all connected here, but with the giant big three in Bowden and Sharkey and Josh Fryman, I think the GN Sports Department has bounced back very nicely.
Yeah, and I think that might, and I think I would be surprised if I think it was Josh and or Kaylee who kind of lobbied to bring Chris back after Jared left, to kind of like you said, it'll be like you said, risking bringing somebody who's up from the outside in. And especially now that we may be seeing both Chicago baseball teams in the playoffs. You got the Bears coming up. You got the Bulls going to be starting practicing in about a month from now. Same thing with the Blackhawks and other stuff too. So I think you're going to want someone who's familiar, that the viewers know and trust and love. And Chris, fits all those things. So I'm glad they brought him back. I'm glad that it seems like the show seems to be. I'm not saying that the show wasn't great with him gone. But I think with Jared, leaving, I think you're going to need somebody to kind of sort of be that anchor. And I think Chris definitely fits that.
It brings back familiarity and stability as well.
So any other sports media news before we go into Old School TV Monday?
No, as Layla Rahim would say, I got nothing. Excuse my broken English. I got nothing.
Well, okay. Well, look, we got a little bit of time before we get to Old School TV Monday. So I guess the pricing, for the NFL Sunday ticket, I guess they released that a little bit ago. And I know that YouTube TV is offering it at a discount. But I right now, $480 or $60 a month for 8 months. If you don't have a subscription to YouTube TV, they're actually now offering, for people who do have it, like myself, $47.25 a month for 8 months. So that's about just under $400. Okay. But even if you're a returning user, so I don't have to pay that much, thank goodness. But even still, it's only $240 for us, for my sister and me. But I'm just like, okay, really, folks are gonna try to. I'm just like, good Lord, really, folks? This the absurdity of all this is just, I can't.
Another good friend of the show, his slogan, Jeff Agers from the Chicago Sun-Times, long live cable. We talked about this before, LaKeena, with all the professional leagues, having parts of not a lot of their coverage going exclusively on streaming. When it's enough, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Apple TV Plus, ESPN Unlimited. I read a snippet that they're upping their prices too. When
Yep.
it's enough, it's about 5, 6, 7, 8 streaming companies. We I'm sorry, but I'm not paying for all that. I like my cable service. Shout out to Xfinity, but I know CHSN right now is saying hold my beer. You got to pay $30 for each team. That's almost close to $375 per year to stream on their app if you don't have a subscription / cable satellite service. When is enough?
Well, look, I think we talked about this at nauseum, Sid, that you probably would be better off just keeping their cable or satellite provider because, cut the cord, you'll save money. Well, it doesn't help if you're a sports fan or a movie fan because you got to pay a lot of this stuff separately. So you're real bit better off just keeping the freaking, your cable or satellite provider. So,
yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Let's not forget HBO Max as well, the Bleacher Report app. It's like 1,000 apps out there. This game is on this service. I got paid for that. Oh, it's over here. I got paid for that. Enough is enough.
Yeah. Just when does it end? I think that's really I think the key is. Like, when does it end? So, oh gosh, this is just crazy. Now, one more thing before we go into Old School TV Monday. Carl Ravage officially signs off from ESPN's MLB coverage. He didn't really say goodbye because I think he's still going to be doing the Little League World Series, which that won't end until this weekend. But he did sign up for the final time in the Little League Classic. Well, of course, between the Braves and the Brewers. The Braves ended up winning that, but to avoid the sweep. But yeah, I'm glad that they are. It's either I'm glad they are the way he's handled it as classy as you can, and I'm glad that ESPN has at least let him finish up doing the sports that he likes doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know Chris Sale of the Atlanta Braves made a comment about him last night being the voice of MLB baseball over the last several years. And, of course, we noticed the changes to the ESPN's coverage, especially the Sunday Night Baseball over the last several years. I know they don't have it anymore. NBC does. But, it's like Carl Ravage. I'm like, y'all remember him. He made his debut on SportsCenter back in the early 90s. He was the face of Baseball Tonight, their nightly show, along with Peter Gammons and Harold Reynolds back in the late 90s and early 2000s before MLB Network took over and all that. And he was great at what he did. Of course, he did a lot for college basketball, and in particular SEC tournaments over the last several years. So, salute to Mr. Ravage, and good luck to wherever he does in the future. And he definitely deserved that classy send-off last night.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I say, I'm sure they're going to let at least finish up the League World Series, so he probably won't, that the final of that will be on ABC on Sunday. So we'll see if I'm sure he'll get emotional, even more emotional than he did last night in a Little League World Series Classic. I usually Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. LaKeena McGee, Steve Brown with you. Is that time again? We're going, into Old School TV Monday. Every week most weeks we talk about show, movies, TV special, what have you. Some you may remember, some you probably don't remember. I guess it depends on, if you're watching NBC, there's another hint. Back in the early 90s, you probably remember this show. This took place in South Beach. And Sid, I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, and this is the American TV series now. It was called Nurses. It was a spinoff from Empty Nest and Golden Girls. Nurses was an American sitcom television series that aired on NBC from September 14th of 1991 until May 7th, 1994. It was created and produced by Susan Harris as a spinoff of the shows I just mentioned. The series revolved around a group of nurses working at the same Miami hospital as Empty Nest's Dr. Harry Weston. The main characters were a strong-willed nurse, Annie Rowland, played by Arnetta Walker, the sister, the sarcastic nurse Sandy Miller, played by Stephanie Hodge, the dim-witted nurse Julie Milbury, played by Mary Jo Keenan, and Latina nurse Gina Cuevas, Ada Maris, who frequently reminisce about her homeland. Also in the cast were Eric and Dr. Hank Kaplan, played by Kip Gilman, wisecracking early Paco Ortiz, played by Carlos LaCamara, and flaky nurse Greg Vincent, played by Jeff Altman. Florence Stanley had a recurring role during the first season as Dr. Riskin. Changes were made after the first season in an effort to boost ratings. David Rask joined the cast as Jack Trenton, a slimy white-collar criminal forced to perform community service at the hospital. And in the final season, the late great Lonnie Anderson joined the cast as new hospital administrator Casey McCaffey. Other changes including the addition of Marcus Flanagan as distant nurse Luke Fitzgerald for the second season only. The changing of the show's theme song in seasons 2 and 3, having Nurse Gina and Hank Campbell getting married, and Nurse Greg Vincent also was written off after season 1. In the series' final season, Nurse Sandy was gone, and the series focus moved toward increasingly from the nurses to Casey McAfee's adjustments in running the hospital under a new HMO and the antics of Jack Trenton and his sidekick Paco the Orderly.
Yeah, it seems like they didn't really know what to do with the show. To be honest, I mean, the first season was more of a dramedy. They had like a disease of the week. They dealt with cancer. They dealt with AIDS. They dealt with child cancer, and a few other diseases and such. And of course, by the second season, it was more of a comedy. Of course, David Rask, who I adore. Of course, he was from Sledgehammer. I remember that show. We'll do that show down the line for. Old School TV Monday. They brought him on to kind of bring more comedy into it. Of course, he and Pablo, Jack and Pablo were hilarious. Then, of course, that didn't work, so they brought in Lonnie Anderson to kind of be the new like hospital, owner with all the HMO and all that stuff, the bureaucracy there, and so it was just like, okay. Now they did bring on some of the Golden Girls and Empty Nest people to come in. To kind of boost ratings a lot, especially in that last season. They brought on Richard Mulligan's, Harry, of course, David Leisure's, Charlie Dietz, and also even Sophia Petrillo, by the late great Stella Getty. And of course, Dinah Manoff, who played Carol, they were in the same episode too to kind of help boost the ratings. Unfortunately, it still didn't work. So, I think it was one of those shows where maybe if it came on at a different time, maybe, you think about The Pit now. Of course, Pit is a drama, of course, with Noah Wiley and them. But, you wonder, also ER will come on about a year after that. So a year after, of course, Nurses ended.
Yeah.
So you kind of wonder if it came on like earlier, maybe a little bit later, maybe it could worked a little bit more. But I like the show for what it was, but it just seemed like it had trouble finding its footing.
Yeah, and also too, you mentioned those changes, and in particular, I remember hearing about this show when I was little. Of course, my late mother watched it, and I remember the name Lonnie Anderson. Obviously, she passed away a couple of years ago, and of course, she was coming off the fame of WKRP in Cincinnati, a show that we did not too long ago on the segment on this show. So I think, in my opinion, that in the last season, they tried to make that show more about her, which was, like I said, she deserved the legendary status that she received at that time, but the whole trajectory of that show changed, and like I said, it just wasn't the same. And like you said, they try to mix in the old with the new, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was just one of those shows where it just like, I know that they brought on the Empty Nest, and of course Sophia Petrillo was on there too for during the first and last seasons. I think even Betty White and Rue McClanahan were on there too for the first season. So. Yeah, those are some of the highest rated shows, obviously, but it was kind of like one of those things where the crossover episodes, but you're kind of like, okay, I know what you're trying to do, but it still didn't work. So, yeah, I mean, all the episodes are on YouTube if you want to check it out. You might remember, I did it over the weekend. I Sid did it too. You may remember some of the episodes that originally aired, but it's not streaming anywhere for the most part. It was like I said, it was a good show for what it was, but I think it would have been timed a little bit better. I think it probably would have taken off had they picked the direction of what they wanted to do with it.
Yeah, like I said, you go to the well. Like I said, we know it's a spin-off show for Empty Nest and Golden Girls, but sometimes when you go back into the well too many times, it gets old and it gets repetitive fast, and I think that's what happened here, unfortunately.
Yeah. So. All right, so for this week's edition of Old School TV Monday, and I know there have been like 50 million different versions of nurses. I know there was a Canadian version that aired back in just a few years ago. I know there was a Colombian version that aired a year before. I know there was another TV movie version of Nurse with the late great Robert Reed from the Brady Bunch fame. Yeah, but this is the one we're talking about is from the NBC sitcom, The Nurses. So we salute that for Old School TV Monday.
All right, LaKeena, take us home.
You follow my Keena McGee on the Twitter, XQ's Keena IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sidney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from 12:15 to 2:15 p.m. Central Standard Time right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And if you miss our version of our long sports media news segment, of course, anytime you want to listen to our old school TV Monday segment, if you miss our Cubs and White Sox and baseball talk from earlier or Bears talk, don't worry, you can catch, or if we have a guest, don't worry, you can catch the replays anytime anywhere on the Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook, YouTube channels. You can catch replays of our show, Sean Sierra Sports, the Smoke Fellas, and so much more. You can catch it anytime anywhere on Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook, YouTube channels.
And we will provide.
Yeah, shout out to the Sky real quick. Look, I know they were able to pull some wins out of their Tuckuses the last few weeks, unfortunately. Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston had something to say about that. They were officially eliminated from the playoffs. Honestly, I'm glad. Unfortunately, just these last, I think they got like 6 games left if I'm not mistaken. So we don't have to worry about that too much anymore. But I think their next game is on tomorrow against the Sun. So you won't be able to watch that game anywhere on television or listen to it on the radio. But if you want to listen to it and watch it, you can. I'm sure you'll find ways to do that. But also, you got the Baseball League World Series. There's been some great standouts. Anthony Johnson Jr., the brother, they're out there in Iowa. He had a no hitter and had I think he had like 3 home runs yesterday, two home runs I should say yesterday. So I forgot the young lady's name. I know there's a young lady that I think her team lost yesterday, so I think they might be eliminated. I don't know, but you can check out that coverage on ESPN's Family Network, ESPN, ESPN2 all week long from both the U.S. and from the international squad. So if you want to check that out, you can. Also, you got soccer's in full swing. Of course, you got MLB, and of course, NFL. We'll get more into NFL stuff. Hopefully, we'll get some people on to talk about the divisions on our previews coming up in the next week or so. So hopefully, we'll get that for you guys. But with that said, enjoy all of that. For Sid, I'm LaKeena with Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. We'll see you guys on Friday.
Go Sox! Holla!